let me first start with this, and this is kind of where we start every time. We're going to talk about finances, but these finances are your finances, right? We are all called to participate in the finances of the church. So while I may give you a rundown of what the giving for the church was and what expenses for the church were for this last year and what we expect for the coming year, all this information is available to you. So I'll be in the back room after services to answer any more questions that you've got or any questions that you have. Any detail that you might want, I've got I love detail. I've got tons of detail with me. Come, I'd love to share with you, trust me. It is a threat. It is absolutely, take me on, please. I'll take that bet. So, okay, let's roll to the first page. So, guys, in a nutshell, 2019 was another successful year from a financial perspective for ECF. Giving, so our regular weekly giving, as well as giving for benevolence and things like that, we wound up being almost directly spot on our expectations for the year. Now, you'll remember about May, I think, and then again midway through the year, and then all the way in through September, I or one of us had come to you and said, look, guys, we're behind in the year. So the good news is we finished strong for the year. The challenge is we finished strong in part because of a number of just large one-time gifts. Now, I would love for everybody to give a large one-time gift. That was humorous. The challenge, that's as good as it gets, guys. The challenge is it's hard to plan our spending when we live off of large one-time gifts that come late in the year. So I'm going to do my normal begging, which is when summer comes and everybody goes on vacation, our expenses don't, please keep your giving consistent. I mean, we literally have seen differences of up to $50,000 in a month between a low and a high. So that's just hard to budget the church's finances. We were almost spot on with regular giving and benevolence giving. We also generate income from other sources. So, for example, we have interest on our savings. We rent out the church facility. We actually wound up being a little bit over our expectations for revenue in those areas. So that put us a little bit over in total for revenue for the year. On the expense side, our staff did exactly what you always expect them to do, what they have always done because they're super conscientious, is when giving became spotty, especially during the summer, we pull back, right? We tighten the belt. And so as of the end of the year, we were also a little bit under on expenses. So a little over in our giving, a little bit under on expenses. We wound up adding about $40,000 to our rainy day fund, to our savings that we built up over the years. Now, we, like any family, like all of us should do, we put money aside for tough times or rainy days or unplanned expenses. So we currently sit on about a year's worth of expenses, which is a comfortable place for the church to be. We can handle some of these ups and downs. I think that's kind of it for. We also have no debt. I meant to mention to everybody, there have had some questions on that in the past. The church has absolutely zero debt, which is kind of where we all would love to be, right? So that's 2019. Again, I'll be in the back room afterwards, be able to give you a lot more detail. Let's roll to 2020. So our expectations for giving are always driven by our expectations for expenses. And so let me walk you through expenses first. So in total, our regular, there's a lot of eyeballs looking at that screen. That's good. I like that. In total, our expectations for just our regular recurring expenses on the year are going to be up about $75,000 between 19 to 20. So let me break down that $75,000 for you. About 50 of that, which is about a 10% increase, comes from just regular, normal increases in things that it just takes to run the church. So rent, for example, our rent's going to go up $10,000 this year. Rent if you think about what you pay if you're renting a home or things of that nature, it goes up on a periodic basis. Ours is going to increase about $10,000 this year. Our investment in missions and benevolence, our intent is to continue to expand our influence in our local community as well as abroad. I'll go through a little bit more detail on that in a minute, but we expect to spend another $8,000 or so in benevolence. And then we also have to replace our van, the van that we use for moving teens and moving people around. We sold the van that we used to have last year. It was in bad shape, it was leaking, it was not safe, and so we sold the van, but because giving was kind of sporadic, we held off and didn't replace the van. But we have to provide a safe means of transportation for our teens and for other uses for that van. So that's about another $15,000 that we'll have to spend this year. So those total with a few other items are that kind of a $50,000 increase in our general everyday expenses for the church. Now, there's another $25,000 that is going to come from what we believe to be the incremental expenses of hiring our next lead pastor. So we've talked about this a couple of times. Dave and Suzette have graciously blessed this church for years and years since inception by taking a salary that is below market. But when we hire the next lead pastor, we won't have that luxury. We're not planning on it anyway. And so we expect the next lead pastor to be here roughly half a year. So we'll have to build into this year's budget about $25,000 of incremental costs just for ongoing salaries. So that's $75,000. So how do we pay for that? Two ways. One, guys, we're all in this together. So we all need to be financially supporting the church. That's what we're called to do. So if you're not giving toward the church, I'm asking you to please start. And then those who are giving, we need to increase what we give as well. I mean, I don't know how to put it any more plain speak than that. Our average increase we need for the year is 6%. That means some of us will give more, some of us may give a little bit less, but we all need to prayerfully consider what we give. In addition to those normal operating expenses, we expect to incur somewhere around $40,000 or up to $40,000 in costs related to the search for the next lead pastor. So we may have to utilize a search firm. We'll probably have to pay for some travel to bring some people back and forth. We may have to participate in things like getting the next lead pastor moved here. So we've built in about $40,000 of our expectations into this coming year. That $40,000, the eldership has decided to essentially take the $40,000 we were over last year and utilize that to pay for these one-time costs, that additional incremental $40,000 this year. So that's not built into our expectation of increased giving in 6%. We're going to utilize the overage from last year to help pay for those one-time expenses. Now, I realize there's a lot of detail here, guys. I will be available afterwards in the back. Let me turn to one last topic before I let go of the mic, and that is what are we spending on in our area of benevolence and missions? It's always a topic that people are really interested in. And so last year we spent about $52,000 in benevolence and missions. This year we expect to spend somewhere around $60,000, so an increase of $8,000 or about 15%. About half of that 60, about 30, goes toward benevolence giving, either toward people that are a member here or the work that we do with Rose Hill. So roughly half of that 60, call it 30,000, is just financial help for those in need. The remaining 30,000 goes to the missions organizations that we support. Now, there are 5 missions organizations up there that you'll recognize that we gave to last year, and so we're continuing to support those organizations. What we have added this year is CareNet. Now, as an eldership, as leadership, as a church, we like to support organizations that the church itself is investing our time in. We have a number of people here that are investing their time in CareNet. CareNet, right? We all have our bottles. So the eldership has decided to start to pitch in and help CareNet as well on a monthly basis. So a lot of information. I'll be available in the back room after services. I truly, truly would love to share whatever information, whatever questions you have. These are your finances. Come talk to me. We're transparent. Thanks, guys.